Welcome to That Japanese Thing. Today we're talking about Yoshihiko and the Demon King's Castle, and the various other series that happen after it. A interesting live-action Japanese show that takes on about all the RPG game parodies and shoves it into one Monty Python-esque show. But before that, my co-hosts today are Yash and Dylan. Welcome, guys. How you guys doing?
Hi.
Hi there.
Good. My name is Christopher. I'm your host. And after our main topic, we'll go through some Japanese news stories at the end concerning Japan's power issues, governors making onsens national heritage sites, what the word of the year is in Japan, and Takashi Murakami's latest art exhibition featuring Evangelion-esque Gundams. Alright, let's dive right into Yoshihiko. So the original series was The Hero Yoshihiko and the Demon King's Castle, or its equivalent Japanese title. And actually the translations for the series have been fairly direct and pretty good, so it's nice to see for once. It's what was the other one? What was Erased? Erased had a 10 word long title, and the English title was whatever, we're just shortening it to basically doesn't exist. Anyway, so this show was one I picked. It's from 2011, and it features one of my favorite Japanese actors, Jiro Sato. He plays the Buddha character in this. And whenever he pops up in a show, it's just like a delightful, absurdist kind of insanity that's happening. So, he and the director, Yuichi Fukuda, often work together. And you'll often see them making shows and writing shows and kind of doing comedy stuff together. And he and the guy that plays Merebu, I can't remember his name right now. They all but anyway, if they're in a show together, it's usually a comedy and it's usually pretty great. So this is one of the earlier ones. What kind of genre would you say this sort of thing is, Dylan?
Absurd parody comedy.
Absurd parody, yeah. So it sort of takes place as part of a video game world, emulating. I don't know if you picked up on it, like Dragon Quest.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's isometric. Oh, is it isometric? Scary. Or is it just top down at that point? I'm not entirely sure, but it's from that Famicom era of the original kind of Nintendo games. This was. Is this the game where you begin and you sort of walk into a cave and there's an old man with a sword? And
That's Legend of Zelda.
That's Legend of Zelda. But it's the same sort of
theory
premise of it. That's a genre of game. So yeah, this is what the world is supposed to be, and nothing about it is taken seriously at all at any point, no matter how huge the stakes may be throughout the show. It's just a prime example of the Japanese sense of absurdism and comedy in the face of seriousness, just at any point in life, right? So we have 4 characters. And then the Buddha character. We've got Yoshihiko, he is the hero. That is his title. Danjo, he is supposed to be a warrior.
Yeah, the OG bandits.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, he shows up, and Yoshihiko just tries to ignore him. They have yeah.
If he gets to the end of his story, he'll kill Yoshihiko.
Right. Let me put it this way, they've been reincarnated several times, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
and like theoretically they're over 100 years old now, and they've all died of natural causes already. So Danjo's not doing a great job. Murasaki, she is named after the ninja of the same name, and she is just a sort of assassin character in the beginning, and she also wants to kill Yoshihiko. That's how she shows up. Merubu is supposed to be a
Con
mage.
artist. Yeah.
I think he's the maybe the one of the two best parts of the show. I'd say. He is kind of a cult leader when we first introduced him. He's sort of taken over a village, and he's I don't know, pretending to be a much more powerful magic user than he really is. And then we have the Buddha character,
Hotoke.
played by Jiro Sato, and it's you couldn't do this. I don't know if you could really do this in the West if you took like his the style of thing and you just made him like a Jesus character. It would be so weirdly disrespectful.
Yeah.
You see, the Japanese have a sense of humor about their like
Their religion and such.
strong cultural foundations. You know, they know that it'll be okay. If they make fun of it, it's not going to go anywhere.
No. I mean, you could. I mean, there are things like this, like, you know, in American culture and whatnot.
Like South Park will do it, but they do it
Yeah.
to be controversial. This isn't in a controversial manner.
No, this is like a. Well, I don't know if this is a broadly appealing.
No, yeah.
But he's like the slacker Buddha character. He doesn't really want to be doing what he's doing. And they present him in exactly the same way that God is presented in Monty Python and the Quest for the Holy Grail. Where he's literally just sort of a guy, like a head in the clouds, talking down to the hero characters. And pretty much that is exactly where they got it from. I recall like seeing an interview about it.
Yeah, go on your divine quest. I won't tell you anything more about it.
Exactly. You know, he's got this quest in mind, but he's never really fully decided what the quest should be. So every episode is basically just a new quest. And like a series of the show is him just making up these loosely defined notions of what the end goal of the series should be. The third one, the third and last series is, if you think about it, is actually just finding the 7 Dragon Balls, right?
Yeah.
He'd watched Dragon Ball and he had it on his mind, and so that's what he made up, and that's what happened during that.
I mean, like, he suits Yoshihiko very well. They're both horribly inept at what they're doing, and that's the whole rift, I guess.
And there's one more character, which is Yoshihiko's sister, Hisa.
Yeah,
And she doesn't really feature much.
she's a gag.
She's a gag. She's in every episode for the last 30 seconds, basically. As, like, what's the opposite of an eye catch? You know, the last sort of comedy scene that happens in a show. And then, she has one episode, or 1 or 2 episodes, where she actually does more stuff in, but that's all.
The episode with the flying carpet.
Yes, that is the one in particular. But what is this actually about? So it's essentially about the whole thing starts off as there's a plague, right? And Yoshihiko has to go on a quest with the holy sword, which is for some reason it allows him. It's like the Arthur kind of myth thing. There's a sword in the stone, and he pulls it out, so he's the hero. And so he has to go on a quest to find these herbs which will cure the plague. And
originally that was what it was originally. Yeah,
and
Although
Yeah.
he finds his father like instantly with
Exactly,
the cure
yes.
for the plague.
And this is immediately resolved. So they encounter all four companions, and they swear that they will journey to the ends of the earth no matter how long it takes to find them. And literally, as they do this, he finds his father, and his father is carrying a basket of those herbs on his back, right? And that ends the plot. Everything after that scene is basically just absurd things happening.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's difficult to describe, particularly because there isn't really much beyond a kind of formulaic approach to each episode.
Yeah.
But it never stops being
like
interesting.
The plot is largely irrelevant. It is there. It's literally there as a facade, and not a strong one. In fact, they run several gags on the fact that it's not a strong one. It's a facade to allow them to do parody skits specifically on everything and anything, and have cameos and references, and basically it's a show to allow the director and cast to do what they want.
Yeah. It's like a more structured comedy short show.
Yeah.
Where every episode begins off with a random encounter where they face some bandits. And the bandits always have like a one-off gag, right?
Yep.
So like the one bandit, his thing is he blows a mist of poison at the heroes. But then like the wind blows it into him. or something like that.
Yeah.
Or there's a gang of bandits and all of the underlings, clock out at 5 o'clock. And so the boss is just left to fight the whole crew. So
my personal favorite was the bandit that was too showy and pulled out a poison knife. And then in an attempt to be showy, he licked the knife to threaten them.
Yeah.
And like everyone is like watching him, oh, he's so cool. Look how cool this guy is. And then he just kills himself.
But then there was the one bandit who was in fact an actual bandit but got self-conscious because he didn't have a thing.
Yes.
And so he left to go find his thing before he returned. Yeah.
And there was also, just going on about this, the other bandit who was pretending he couldn't see the ninja. There was always a ninja like behind him, and he was very bad at hiding, and so he was just pretending he couldn't see him.
Oh yeah, I remember that one.
Anyway, so that bit happens. Then we have an opening title sequence. Then the main kind of plot of the story happens, and it's always finding something. So the first one is sort of finding specific items to defeat the Demon King. So they, find a sword, find some armor, find a shield, find some shoes, equip themselves so they can defeat the Demon Lord. The second one is they have to find a key. And the third one is basically they have to find these orbs, which there's 7 of them, and, they're just the Dragon Balls. So the story will be about trying to locate one of those items throughout the thing. And through the first season, it tries to kind of emulate that Dragon Quest kind of vibe. They make quite a few jokes about it. For example, sometimes they'll walk into a house and they'll start smashing pots.
Oh yeah, that's like a repeat theme.
Yeah, I think it happens maybe once a season. Yeah. And sometimes it's interesting because they do it I think they do it 3 times. Like the first time they do it, they just walk through the house and they start smashing things. And
they do it in that snaking line that's so common with JRPGs. Yeah.
If you could imagine your Pikachu from Yellow just following you around kind of thing. Yeah. And so smashing, sometimes the NPCs just behave like NPCs and just ignore them flat out. And sometimes they object vehemently and tell them please stop destroying my house. What are you doing? And then there's one village called FF Village. And that's when they got bored of Dragon Quest and they wanted to do a Final Fantasy. And so obviously the mechanics of Final Fantasy don't really work like that. So when he starts going into people's houses and smashing things, people start protesting more strongly. And I don't know if you noticed in that Final Fantasy thing, all of the characters were these edgy kind of teenage angst things, right?
Stylish, so stylish.
Yes. fake French people and so on and so forth. And there are kind of goals, and the characters do change a little bit throughout, but mostly it's about putting these very set stereotypical characters into situations. So just to describe them better, Yoshihiko is the hero, but he's also an incredible idiot. Like, I don't know if I've ever seen a dumber character portrayed in fiction. I mean, Baldric makes this man look... yeah. Baldric is a genius compared to Yoshihiko.
Yeah, he's got like this plot armor. He has to have this plot armor surrounding him to get anywhere, and that is purely for the convenience of being able to make a next episode.
And
I kind of feel like his sister is meant to be that plot armor as a note. Like, she's always scheming in the background to help him.
Perhaps, yeah, or against him, or something is happening there. But just to clarify, so usually the hero has to overcome obstacles and have a certain kind of, moral character and so on and so forth to get through situations. So Yoshihiko can't do that because he's too dumb to overcome obstacles.
And perverted.
And lazy. So yeah, he doesn't want to be the hero, first of all. He doesn't. Every time a female love interest pops up, he stops being the hero and immediately pursues them at all costs, no matter what is happening.
Completely forsaking and denouncing everything else until it doesn't work out, and then he returns to being a hero.
There's a part where they go to Tokyo. Tokyo is the Demon King's castle in the end of the first season, right?
And sort of the third.
Yeah. But he discovers air conditioning. Right?
Yeah.
And it's so convenient and comfortable that he gives up on being the hero because he just wants to live in his air-conditioned room. That's the degree of personality we're dealing with.
I mean, it's not intentional, but I feel like people should take that message to heart for certain things. Like there are certain luxuries we do not need.
Yeah.
That, or at least not as extensive. But anyway.
And there was just one time he got turned into a dog. I don't know if you remember that. And he wanted to stay as a dog because, in his own words, he could do whatever he wanted and he could poop wherever he wanted to. And that was better than being the hero, in his opinion.
I think the clearest sign of what the writers wanted his character to be was when they were trying to forge the soul sword in season 1. Right. And as soon as his soul left him, he talked about boobs, he talked about sleeping, and he talked about hiding.
And tried to peek under Urasaki's skirt.
Yes, yeah. So the soul in this sort of thing is the thing that keeps you from just indulging in your id kind of fantasies, I guess. So Danjo becomes like a coward, Murasaki becomes like a bimbo airhead kind of thing. I can't remember what happens to Merubu. But yeah, Yoshihiko just becomes like a weird pervert.
Yeah, Murasaki becomes like super... What was it, like super kawaii?
Yes, yeah.
It's a continuing joke from then on as well, that if anything about her changed, she'd be cute. But all of her together is not.
Yep.
And for the first season and a half, she always had this stuffed bird on her shoulder. And at some point they decided it was a real bird. And so they just started giving it things to do.
Like flying around and finding people, or laying eggs.
Still as a stuffed bird the whole time, but,
Yeah. They've got, no shame in that kind of thing. So it's, super low budget as well, I guess is an important thing to understand. But they, purposefully so. I don't think they would want it to be high budget. They wanted to have that feel.
Whenever they encounter monsters, for example, they're just paper mache. Yeah. And they fight them in that JRPG style where you all line up in a row. And there's a turn-based dynamic.
And if there's a boss fight, it'll be the lowest quality animation
Yes.
for the boss fight, so they can draw this giant like paint. It looks like it was drawn in paint,
MS
almost
Paint kind
type
of anime
monster.
style thing.
Yeah.
Very much like that scene from Monty Python where they go into that cave in the quest for the Holy Grail,
Yeah.
where everything suddenly becomes animated. And then the final boss scene will be a CG animated boss.
There'll
And-
actually be kind of okay CG to it as well. Not
No,
great,
but
it's
just-
okay.
but-
no.
just barely acceptable
Yeah.
for a 1992 movie kind of CG.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But this was made in like 2010 to
2011, yeah.
2016. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, no. Let's just go through the rest of them quickly. So Danjo is the stoic warrior type, but he's also just an incredible womanizer on the side, really.
I feel like that's more that like the actor is known for those kinds of roles.
Yes, yeah.
Because he's got that face and the demeanor to do that, so he plays that off. And then every now and then they'll gag reference other roles that he's played in other productions. You know, and he'll go off with like 4 women on his arm to a bar or something.
And part of his role in the story is to narrate the idiocy that Yoshihiko is doing at the moment.
Yeah.
So whenever Yoshihiko gives up on being the hero or does something stupid, there'll just be this like perfect perfect exposition spewing from Danjo's mouth to, oh no, he's given up on hearing and he's walking away from the monster. Oh, and he's running away now. He's throwing away his sword, sort of thing. Just to, perfect comedy. Then Murasaki. Sorry, go on, Dylan.
No. I was gonna say, you know, on that line, I feel like every character has their that sort of like weird. Well, it's not quite fourth wall breaking, but it is sort of weirdly expositional that kind of gives it that feeling. Like Meribu
Meribu.
will just like completely tell it how it is.
Yes, yeah.
So
So Meribu is like a Deadpool kind of fourth wall. He knows the rules of the game he's playing, for instance, right?
Yes, yeah.
So yeah, he'll point out in like real modern world terms like, all the things that are wrong with the world, and Danjo's role is to point out Yoshihiko's flaws. Meribu's role is to point out the world's flaws. That's what he does. So he'll be like, no, Yoshihiko, you can't do that. It's a turn-based game. You have to go and like
or like when
he's like hit X.
Like when the bird starts talking, all it is that the actor with the bird is like ventriloquizing.
So Murasaki's mouth is literally moving whenever the bird speaks.
And he's like, hey, that bird's not actually alive. I can see you talking. I can feel it moving.
Everyone can see you talking, right? It's not just me. Everyone, you're talking. And there's a weird running gag because he's got a mole on his face. About how it's a fake mole, and everyone's always wanting to pull it off. But yeah, that's his pride and glory. That little mole. That's his beauty spot. Meribu's thing, though, his real thing is he's the world's worst wizard who can still cast magic.
Yes.
He's not Rincewind level bad. He can actually cast spells. He's not perf bad. His spells aren't accidental. He chooses what they want. What he wants them to be, right? But they are without a doubt always like, the wrong thing, I guess.
When the slot for the most like applicable, but that's probably how I would word it. None of them are directly applicable to any of the problems of the story. When the most applicable spells are either to instill the deepest desire for a sweet thing inside of the target, or to make that target feel like their brass strap fell off off their shoulder, and so they desperately feel like they need to correct it, whether or not they actually have a bra on.
So one of his spells makes people feel like they should be wearing a cardigan because it's a little bit chilly.
And you got to cast it 1,000 times to be able to freeze the person.
The one is like spark, so he has to cast it like 1,000 times, as you say, to make like a fireball kind of thing. One of them just gives someone bad body odor.
Which was the most...
I think it's the most effective one he's ever done.
But they all vetoed it because none of them wanted to go through that.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
But also, sweets literally saved the day, like on 7 different occasions.
You know, they write it into the story that, you know, he'll distract like the demon lord by making him eat a sweet at the crucial moment or something like that.
I desperately need a sweet thing. Oh.
Okay, that's all the major characters anyway. Well, Murasaki's there to be insulted by everyone, basically.
And to insult them as well.
True.
She's like supposed to be like a completely catty, like...
So she's like the opposite of a love interest. She has no endearing qualities about her. I mean, there's like always a hint that she likes Yoshihiko, but she's not really sure why, because he's such an idiot.
Well, yeah. I mean, I would say that we're not sure why, because he's such an idiot. But yeah, it's almost like the storyline enforces that on her at some stage, because they go
pretty much,
like
yeah.
In season 1, you were quite a way in, maybe not quite halfway, but we're quite a way in, where there's no indication that she likes him, and then all of a sudden, like, can't remember who introduces this as a thing. Someone tells her that she's got a thing for him.
You know what happens?
And they just roll with it, and it's like, well, that was forced.
Oh, I think what happens is whenever they wanted to do like a love kind of triangle thing, they just like revert to her having some sort of interest in him.
Yes, yeah.
Do you remember when they were all like in a school?
Oh yeah.
And there was like a monster attacking it for some reason. Anyway, it's not relevant, but yeah. So she's always there to play that role, and then as soon as they're done with that episode, it's like it never happened.
Yeah.
And no one brings it up again.
And she's also there, like strangely enough, to be the butt of a flat chest joke.
Yes, yeah.
From everyone.
Her and Mirubu have good chemistry in their throwing assaults at each other.
Yeah.
And Danjo and Yoshihiko also have that sort of same kind of thing. Where Danjo's always trying to like prop up Yoshihiko to be like heroic. And then just, you know, Yoshihiko kind of fails him at every turn, sort of thing. Okay, those are the characters. And then everything is either a parody or a comedy skit, right? So in season 2 or 3, I can't remember, we have the Dragon Ball Tournament of Power, the Tenkaichi Budokai, where they have basically all the heroes fighting off against each other. One of them is just literally a ripoff of Master Roshi.
Yes, yeah.
We have a beach episode where we get all the One Piece characters come in.
There was that weird cameo ref.
Yeah. FF Village, Final Fantasy Village.
Yep.
They do a Monster Hunter reference at some point.
Yep, that was season 3.
There's Beauty and the Beast, Lion King, various other Western things that happen throughout.
Did they do one on, like, there was a episode in season 3 for Musica where they were, like, parodying musicals, and it seemed like they were maybe parodying Les Mis? I don't know. I may have like missed the reference, but it was definitely about musicals, and they'll lean hard into.
Was that the village that everything was like a song in?
Yeah, and everyone was dressed as like French military.
Yes. See, I wasn't entirely sure what they're referencing, but there are a number of episodes like that. So there's that one, which is a singing episode, and then he joins a teen idol group.
Yep.
Because it's easier than being the hero is his logic, and he gets to go out with any girl he wants. That's why he does it. There's no.
That was the dream, but he didn't.
And then at the end of every season, we get him fighting a new demon lord. Or the same Demon Lord. I think that happens.
I think it's the same Demon Lord, different bodies.
I think the third season is a different Demon Lord. I'm not entirely sure. But anyway, the first one, they assemble all the stuff. They eventually, convince Yoshihiko to get out of his, air-conditioned room and fight the Demon Lord. Which somehow he manages to pull off. In the beginning of the second season, it turns out that's the last time they saved the game. So, the Buddha reloads the game and they reload in that exact position again. So that they fight the Demon Lord again.
And then the Buddha. There's a lot of hand waving that goes on to just get to the next scene.
Pretty much. And then they fight another Demon Lord at the end of that season. And the third one is the most meta they get. Where they start going into different worlds, and that's the Dragon Quest meets Final Fantasy thing. Monster Hunter, Mario. There's Mario Brothers one is great. Because they can't obviously use the Mario in this thing because they don't have the rights to it. So yeah, he's just a bunch of pixels. I think that's the reason. Or Mario is a bunch of pixels. It's either one of those. I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's. I definitely feel like it's because they're not allowed to directly reference iconic imagery for copyright reasons or whatever, Japanese legal reasons. And the reason, I feel like for the Final Fantasy characters, those are so generic, French fantasy stylish characters that they wouldn't really come under fire for that. But every time they mention Final Fantasy, that's why it's Efu Village and not FF Village. It's Efu specifically, guys. And every time they mention Mario Bros. Or Final Fantasy or what was it? It's not Beast Hunter.
Yeah, Monster.
Anyway, Monster Hunter. Whenever they do that, they bleep the word like the second word out, so it becomes Monster boop or Mario boop or whatever the case may be.
And the Hosaka is another theme going through this because he's incredibly incompetent. As a character,
and also non-caring. He doesn't give a shit about any of this. He's like, oh, I've got to do this. Okay, whatever.
But it sort of comes back to bite him at some points, which I like.
Yeah.
So sometimes one time he was literally having a barbecue. This is the the vegetarian Buddha, eating meat and sukiyaki. He's also drinking excessively at that point. The next time we see him, he's playing mahjong, gambling, and then he gets demoted, right? Because there's a scandal, he falsified his academic records, so he's not qualified to be the Buddha. That's one of the things that happens to him. Then after
an
that,
adultery scandal.
We get a competent Buddha. It's a step in, and everyone's just so surprised that this guy is all businesslike and can do his job properly. But then we get the demotion thing where he gets demoted by 4 ranks, whatever that means. And yeah, he's just he's just a screw up, and it works so well for the show.
And he always is not always, but very often has a comedy bit. And when he doesn't have a comedy bit, Mirabu points out that he's not doing a stupid thing.
True, yes. But he always has one redeeming quality through every season, right? Is that Yoshihiko gives up on his quest at the end of every season. Usually in the second last episode. So the first season, Yoshihiko starts working as a part-time guy so he can afford his air conditioning. And so the Buddha is a customer that comes in and just basically snaps him out of it.
That's right.
You're the goddamn hero. Go do hero stuff.
God, and in the second season, he literally comes out from the ocean and slaps him.
He's on a jet ski. Gets onto the beach, runs up to him and slaps him. Oh dear. I can't remember the last one, but it's something to do with the Dragon Balls. Oh no, he just reveals that he just had no plot for the season, so he was just trying to make them do a Dragon Ball Z thing, right?
But he also like unleashes a series of complaints about how the party is not acting according to the story,
Yes, yeah.
or they're bad at acting according to the story.
Pretty much.
Mm.
Yeah. So it's a show that's just, it's full of references, which, you know, people are, what are they calling, like member berries nowadays, and that's supposed to be a bad thing. But it's like fun references. It's making fun of everything. It's proper satire. It's kind of dumb, I'll admit. But sometimes it's kind of smartly dumb, in a way. Where it's using stupidity to make sometimes surprisingly like subtle jab at something.
I feel like a lot of that would fly over the heads of most Western audience members.
True.
I know that I was getting maybe 10% of some of the references because like those are more global phenomena, but a lot of them were very local.
Yeah. I mean, if it has to do with like Japanese politics or something, I just didn't really understand what was going on sometimes. They do make a lot of Buddhist kind of jokes, obviously, with the Buddha and such. This is where you get the "it's just kappa all the way down" scene from. The Buddhist philosophy, the world rides in the back of a turtle, and what's under that? Another turtle. What's under that? It's turtles all the way down, is the quote.
Yeah.
But
you see that works for a Western audience because you had Terry Pratchett doing that. And so you've got that reference at least that is now universal, which is very clever. But, yeah.
But I mean, there's a bunch of Western stuff as well, and things that have become kind of Western-y, you know? So I mean, we get Spirited Away references, there's Harry Potter references throughout as well. You know, a bunch of anime stuff, which most people I think will get, especially like the Dragon Ball and all that sort of kind of
and definitely
stuff.
the gaming references are easy to achieve.
Yes, yeah. I think that's just about everything to be said about it.
I mean, like there's a lot of episodes, but because they're so formulaic, it feels like there's not a lot that you can say about the thing, except for specific skits.
Yes.
Maybe it's okay, but yeah, pretty simple in that way.
But everything makes you smile. Maybe it's not the height of comedy for some people, but if you're into like Japanese culture, this is just a fun time. All things considered.
Yeah, if you want like the equivalent of a Japanese Monty Python mixed with,
yeah, I mean,
like some of those LARPing YouTube videos.
Oh, like this is going to be so niche that no one will get it, but Gamers, the original Gamers movies, where it was just people dressing up as their D&D characters and having like LARPs and such.
Yeah,
this is exactly that, except the premise is not D&D; it's a 80s video game.
Yeah, so if you're into that, then you'll probably enjoy it.
And it does that thing where a lot of Japanese humor is described as like slapstick, which is not really true. It's just that's the kind of humor that translates into other cultures from Japanese humor.
Yeah.
But the actual humor in this is absurdist.
Yeah, I often think of Japanese humor as being either absurdist or having those like hard handbrake turns in subversion of expectation. And this seems to be quite.
There's often like quite a witty turn of phrase that's used as humor in Japan as well, but that can't be translated. So
yeah, no, puns are way too.
I mean, in some ways, British humor is kind of closer to some of that Japanese humor. Like Japanese humor is like halfway between like German humor and British humor, kind of. Yeah.
I did find a lot of the humor in this was very Japanese, in that if you're not accustomed to how the Japanese interact with each other, a lot of the fun of the interactions goes out the window. Because there was some awkwardness that is hilarious if you're familiar with like how to communicate, but like if you're just a foreigner, it just feels uncomfortable.
And just, you know, like the title cards, for example, like there's just an episode called in which Yoshihiko basically dies like twice. Is this the title? That's how seriously the show sort of takes itself.
Yeah. Definitely not a... Like, I wouldn't recommend this for someone who's looking for storyline or plot or fantasy adventure or...
But if you want something that'll just make you smile in the evening, this is pretty great.
It's a skit show with LARP backgrounds.
There we go. Yeah. If you're looking for that with a Japanese flavor to it, oof.
There are several seasons by several different shows by the same director as well. He also made Space Job Uchishigoto, which is about like Earth's space defense force, which is always just 4 random Japanese people selected at random. Because it turns out in that universe, aliens are incredibly weak and stupid. So literally anyone can do the job. So it's literally just 4 random Japanese people sitting across a board table where aliens try to invade Earth, but they will either just dissuade them from doing so by pointing out, like, you don't breathe oxygen, what are you gonna do with it, or something like that, right? Or one thing was like, humans are kind of smelly. Oh, you're right, that is terrible, we'll just leave. Sort of thing. But yeah, that is, so this is his kind of style and humor, and there's more from him, I guess. Alright, I think that concludes that. I'd recommend it. I'd give it like a good 7 out of 10, and with the caveat of sometimes it has some of my favorite jokes in Japanese humor in general, so maybe a 9 out of 10 for those particular episodes. What do you think, Dill?
I wouldn't give it a rating, but I would say pretty much exactly what I've said. If you're looking for a gag skit reel that is parody, that is absurdist, and delves in both nerd culture as well as Japanese pop culture, then that is definitely something to pick up. I do feel like it will get dated very quickly. So in a way, it's good that it was from 2010 to 2016. Yeah. I feel like in another 10 years, it's gonna devalue significantly in terms of what it can offer.
Maybe. Yeah, I mean, it's not going to be around forever for sure.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of those references are going to be they're going to be generational. But yeah, I mean, if that's what you want, give it a shot. There's a lot of content to get through that is in the same formula. So, I don't know. It depends on how much you need novelty. For me, I generally need quite a bit of novelty. So it wears a bit thin after about a season. After a season and a half.
It's not bingeable. But if you're like me and you like maybe you like watch like a dramatic thing and then like a comic thing to kind of balance thing out, this is a great thing to slot into that.
Yeah, I mean, I do feel like it depends. Some people do like consistency in what they're watching. Like there are several anime shows that we've covered that pretty much is the same thing day in, day out.
Yeah.
And different personality types prefer different things. So if you like, that formulaic approach with skits, you'll enjoy it.
So Yesh, what do you give it?
6 out of 10. This show definitely has a quality to it. I recognize the comedy, but this fell super flat for me. I'm not calling it a bad show. It's a good show, but the style of comedy is not my style of comedy.
Fair enough.
I think that the jokes were well told. I think the characters were like what was happening was interesting. I would say that nobody should ever binge this show. This is definitely one of the ones where you want to watch maybe 2 episodes in a week and then give yourself some time. Because the funnies stop being as funny if you just see it over and over again, if that makes any kind of sense.
Also, the more you know about the background stuff
the
the
video
more
game
enjoyable
lore,
it will
the
be,
Japanese
yeah.
culture stuff, the current
Mm.
event
So if
stuff.
you played Dragon Quest and you've watched a lot of anime and that sort of thing, this is going to be much more enjoyable than if you haven't done any of those things.
Mm.
For
Indeed.
sure.
I've personally played Dragon Quest. I played Final Fantasy back from 6 and everything. So the whole turn-based thing, all of the jokes involving that and everything, I was able to get all of that. But for example, whenever a show, any show, not just this show, tries to make, for example, a dog talk by like dubbing over a dog barking with words, that makes me cringe on the inside and makes me like want to drop the show immediately. And that has nothing negative to say about the show. That's a personal taste thing. I can fully recognize that. But
One last thing though about it is I believe that this is where we got Megaman from.
really?
Yeah, this is where what's his name? The author of Konosuba said he first thought of Megaman when he looked at Merib.
Megaman. Merib. Okay, that makes a degree of sense, yeah.
A useless wizard who can't really achieve anything.
Merib was an interesting character, at least.
It's like
So
like
that's nice.
inverse. All of his spells are only applicable for the utmost combat.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, yeah. So yeah, he
But,
can't do anything because his spells suck, but she can't do anything because she won't choose useful spells.
Yeah, so for me, this is a 6, but I do recognize that there's a good quality to the show, and the humor is interesting. However, I will say I fully agree. Just like Gintama, another great show, this is dated. The fact that almost no games do the turn-based side-by-side combat anymore, and a lot of the cliches that they are referencing are not actually in games anymore, kind of makes it a sort of a time-limited sort of situation. I'm lucky enough to be able
I
to
think-
be someone who grew up with this.
I think
so
you'd be
I'm okay.
surprised at like how many people still actually like play those old side
Those older
scrollers.
games, yeah. It's entirely possible, but I still think that as we move away, the number of those people will just constantly get less.
Diminish. Yeah.
It is, yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, certain old games are going really surprisingly strong.
Mm.
But especially with these ones, like there are modern versions of them, so that does kind of
A lot of the modern
Tamp down
versions
on
get
that.
rid of the turn-based.
yeah, exactly.
Mm. They lose the nostalgic elements.
Anyway, that'll do it for that. And now on to some news. So there is an interesting kanji-related news. So the Association for Kanji Writing Ability issues a kanji of the year, or a word of the year.
Mm.
And last year's was kin, gold, and supposedly that was in relation to the Tokyo Olympics. I assume that's because of how much gold it lost Japan to host the Olympics. No, really, it's because I think the Japanese did quite well, and they won like 27 gold medals or something like that.
Mm.
This year is a little bit darker. It's Sen, and Sen means war. And there is a bit of a specter of war going around Japan at the moment.
Mm.
So yeah, what do you guys think of that dark turn in kanji-related news?
With Japan increasing its funding for its defense force, and I don't know if you guys heard this, but they recently passed a bill allowing themselves to attack people now. That's an interesting word to put out as your word of the year.
Right.
Yeah. Look, I mean, yeah, I don't know in terms of deciding on what year for. Sorry, what word for the year? But these things will come and go, and some of it will materialize, some of it won't. It's like very much a part of living
So the
on that scale.
The last time they picked the same word, war, was in 2001. That, obviously, there were some things going on there as well that led to some wars and such. So I don't know if it is like a herald of things to come, or if it's just the general feeling of anxiety that I think a lot of people are experiencing right now.
So,
But supposedly they also chose it because of the national soccer team's performance in Qatar. So you never know exactly what the reason is, I guess. Tokyo governors are... Sorry, not Tokyo governors, but just governors in general in Japan are trying to get onsen declared a UNESCO kind of heritage, or give UNESCO heritage status to Japanese onsen culture. I do agree that like Japanese like hot spring culture is different to hot springs in other countries, but I don't know if it's really like a thing you can, sort of trademark in that way. I mean, I've been to hot springs, in a couple of continents.
yeah.
And they're mostly just the same sort of thing. It's hot, smelly water.
I
Kind
mean,
of unbearably hot in most instances.
I mean, specifically, are they getting specific onsen recognized as UNESCO heritage sites, or are they trying to tick the word?
They want the concept of Japanese onsen to be recognized by the UNESCO Intangible Cultural Heritage List.
Okay, and what does that list do? What what are some examples?
I guess to stay in Japan, something like kabuki could be on that list, for example.
Okay.
Or if you could imagine, maybe like the running of the bulls.
Okay, so these are like cultural activities. That okay. I was like wondering if this is like
Based on what I can see, sorry, I was just reading up
No,
what the
no,
UNESCO list is about. Sorry if I can just interrupt for a second. The UNESCO list has a website that directs people to cultural activities within a nation, promotes that cultural activity, so I'm guessing they'll be either giving some funding or some airtime to advertising, one of the two,
Right.
and assists with maintaining. I don't know what that means entirely, but I'm guessing that also means making sure that the facilities continue to exist.
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting idea. I don't... Do you feel that onsens need a boost in advertising or an awareness?
Onsens have been struggling recently, and there has been a
that's
talk,
because-
although not this year,
I mean, that's for obvious
about
reasons, though, right?
updating them. Yes, admittedly, for obvious reasons. But there, I remember last year there was a story about a committee trying to maintain the current culture, as a whole bunch of onsens are pushing to update to permit clothing so that more foreigners would be comfortable getting involved.
Yeah, I mean, they should also do things like allow people, specifically with tattoos and such, to go in and that sort of thing.
I would fully support that.
Specifically foreigners. I mean, I'm okay with them maybe like, saying no to obvious like Yakuza types, I guess. But
but even then,
yeah,
I would argue because the younger generation of Japanese people, like
but
young adults,
exactly, a lot
are
of,
all like a lot of them are tattooed.
well, a
And
lot of them would be
alternative.
tattooed if they could get away with it, right?
Yeah, and they are certainly not members of the Yakuza.
Exactly. So this is based on the fact that Finland's sauna culture is recognized as a UNESCO cultural heritage.
Recognized
thing.
cultural activity, yeah.
Which
Although Finland does have some, although I suppose you could say that about Japan. They have some very.
But you know,
both of them involve hot water and being naked. So
yeah. I mean, I was going to say it's a very specific thing that everyone of all genders are naked in a small confined room that's very steamy.
Indeed.
So but I mean that's sort of a subjective line, I suppose. So,
yeah. But anyway, that's a little bit of fun. Going to onsen is fun. I recommend it for everyone. And then we have Takashi Murakami. He is like the anime serious artist. He doesn't do anime per se, but he does Japanese pop art. So he's currently got an exhibition in Dubai or the UAE somewhere in general. I'm not entirely sure. And his thing is he takes Japanese pop culture. So he'll take like Mario style stuff. He takes Gundam style stuff and so on and so forth, and he'll translate it into like a physical art piece. So like either a painting or a sculpture or something like that. What he's doing at the moment is he's displaying his like Mickey Mouse collection, and he's taken pictures of he's taken physical 3D renderings of Mickey Mouse, and he's made them in this like cutesy Hello Kitty anime style. So the faces look like Astro Boy. They're in Sentai, so there's 4 of them, and they all have their own themed color. And yeah, it's that sort of stuff that he's going on about. I think his art has like really interesting things to say about Japanese culture as well. So it's not just like a pure like plastic pop art kind of style that we saw in like the 60s or whatever. So he'll do specifically his interesting things to say about like Gundam and Evangelion and things like that. And he's got a incredible painting by of a Gundam made into like a EVA style thing, which it just is a encapsulation of what he's aiming at there. But he was saying, so the difference between Japanese culture currently, or when he was a bit younger, like in the 90s and 2000s, and Western culture, is that Western culture still believed that it was the central like moral rightness of the world at that point, right? So it was good and it was against evil, right? And that's why there are these very black and white kind of storylines that emerge in a lot of Western novels and TV shows and such. And he was saying that Japan has a loser culture, is the word he uses, right? Where because they lost the war, they've kind of developed a sort of a self-hating reflex against themselves in a certain way. Again, his words, not mine. It's just the way he describes it. And what he's saying is the West has slowly come to realize that it's not like right quite a lot of the time. And some of the things it's doing are kind of bad. So more and more people in the West are developing that loser mentality. Again, his words, not mine. And he doesn't mean like, the traditional word loser, just like as someone who is lost or is against the general consensus, I guess. And so that more and more people are getting into anime because they are coming to sort of more understand the Japanese mentality of like being the underdog, and sort of like there's like a self-hating theme that goes through a lot of Japanese, particularly shonen anime, where Gundam, the original Gundam, and Evangelion are about characters who are not only fighting an enemy, but they're also fighting an internal battle against their own personalities. And most of the time, they kind of hate themselves as much or more than they hate the enemy that they're fighting.
Mm-hmm.
And then he draws, flowers and such in pop art styles. So I would love to go there, but I'm not flying to Dubai. Hopefully under any circumstances.
Feels like it's definitely a direction to go down, I guess. Like it's a very subjective view.
If art has nothing interesting to say, it's not art, basically, right? So that's his thesis, and it's interesting to think about. Whether or not it's true or not doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. But he's studied a lot of ancient Japanese and sort of old modern period Japanese art as well. So he kind of makes interesting commentaries about that sort of the period in time with his paintings in general. In that what he's chosen to do is similar to those artists, and they would take like very simple things and they'd make a very simple final artwork, but the interesting thing about that artwork would be the stroke of the brush would be incredibly precise and complicated. So you would see the artwork and it would look completely mundane, but the more you thought about it, the more interested you would get in the incredible preciseness with which everything in that was done. And so his paintings are made to look incredibly simple, and they do appear that way. In fact, like his sculptures are made that way. They look like they've just been cast, in a vat of plastic and then kind of painted by like some sort of robot. But you sort of begin to realize that he's done this all by hand. He's made these incredibly like machine-produced products, painstakingly by hand, in a very, craftsman-like manner. Same deal with his paintings. They're very, very interesting to think about, like how complicated they are, yet how simple they look. Anyway, what do we have for us? Let's go with Yash.
Okay. So I have some slightly lighter, more fluffy news. Firstly, I want to say the Pokemon anime has finally decided to move on from Ash Ketchum. In the last season of Pokemon Ultimate Journeys, he finally won the Pokemon League and has finally become a Pokemon Master, the goal that he initially set out with. And as such, from the 26th season onwards, we will have a new protagonist, as Ash and Pikachu retire, effectively. He has made it all the way to the age of 15 these last 25 years. And apparently that is old enough. And just like any esports major, it is time to give up on life.
Right.
Our new protagonist is a young girl, and we're going to see how her journey begins from 2023 onwards. There are 11 episodes planned at the end of Journeys this current season, which will only release next year, which will be a summary of Ash's entire journey, apparently. I myself am looking forward to perhaps watching those 11 episodes, as recapping his entire journey is actually kind of like my entire childhood. So I'm looking forward to seeing that.
Have you kept up with Pokemon?
Amusingly, right? From the 25 seasons, I've watched 18.
Wow, I mean that's quite a lot.
So I definitely fell off, but
yeah. I think I am watching the first one season, and then I watched like when they went to Aloha. So yeah, I'm not sure. I'd be interested to see if anyone actually. I mean, obviously you kept up with it quite well. But there's probably
Orange Islands and all of the League arcs in between have always kept me entertained. As a note, I began liking Pokemon when I read the manga for it. Then I played the video games for it, and then the TV show.
Yeah.
So
there was a time when everyone was, if you were a kid in the 90s, for example, you were bound to be obsessed with Pokemon. At least at least for a few months, provided you had access to a Game Boy, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Well, even without a Game Boy, the Pokemon TV show was ridiculously popular for a very long time.
Yeah.
We were a bit older. We were just slightly age gapped above, but the generation below us, it was a phenomenon.
It was on at the exact same time as Dragon Ball Z, though. So you had to make a choice.
Unfortunate.
Or you had to buy a VCR.
For me, Pokemon and then Digimon played after each other.
Exactly. But so Pokemon and Dragon Ball Z were on the same time on different channels. But it was Pokemon and then Digimon. And presumably
so
because the people who ran the
those
programs thought they were the same thing.
Digimon, admittedly, only for 8 seasons or 6 seasons.
Yeah.
But Pokemon, I just on and off a lot. And then for my second bit of news, Spy X Family, with its recent popularity and assorted projects going forward, have earned the right to get a Universal Studios Japan ride, apparently. A full attraction is opening on February 17th. The Try It Out Secret Mission with the Forger Family attraction will allow visitors to experience what it's like to be a super spy in this universe. Spy X Family is one of the best anime I've seen from last year, or I suppose this year still. And I quite highly suggest it to people.
I hope it has like Bond Man somewhere just like running around in the background.
In it, yeah. Absolutely. But that
sounds like
is
fun.
all of the news I have.
Dylan, what do you got?
I mean, so the news has been pretty bleak. They've had another incident with Japanese law enforcement that I personally find quite heartbreaking. It was the death of a mentally unwell individual who was arrested for obstruction of justice. And it seems that his conditions were pretty horrific. He was being held at the police station, specifically in Aichi, the Okazaki police station, and I won't go into any of the details, but it's pretty bad.
It's a shame. This happens every few years. You hear a story about this, usually a foreigner who has sort of less rights, being treated pretty poorly in Japanese detention.
For me, it's just the degree of lack of empathy. That there are just so many layers to it that it's just kind of mind-boggling.
Yeah.
And yeah.
No, it's terrible. To end on a slightly brighter note, though, in some ways, people are complaining about how many Christmas illuminations there are in Japan. And specifically, people are complaining because there are scenes of Tokyo with all the Christmas illuminations on, but the buildings have to put their lights off in the background, right? Because of power regulations. So we have dozens of trees, strewn with lights, everything lit up, bright as can be, but the buildings can't keep the lights on beyond 7 o'clock at night or something like that.
Are we talking about like residential buildings or offices?
Office buildings, yeah. So this is mostly an issue for
that's not a bad thing, guys. That's a good thing. I'm for that.
Sure. I mean, I'm all for people using power more efficiently and such. But, the choice of the Christmas lights, coming on and being allowed to stay on all night and the lights in the building not being allowed on seems a bit irrational.
I understand the position, and I firmly take the one of the fact that they have a horrible work culture. And,
people are still allowed to work in the dark, Dylan. They just can't have the lights on.
Is it specifically lights, or like is everything else allowed to be powered? I suppose you can do that in Japan because they're just very compliant.
Yes, you can have your computer on. You can have a desk lamp on. They have to put the ceiling lights off, I believe.
Okay.
Which is to encourage people to go home, and also to save power.
Uh-huh. Well, I think they should have more Christmas lights that will then force people to go home.
Just blare Christmas music.
I am not one for... No one needs Christmas music. I am not one for Christmas. I really dislike it in general. But if it means people get to go home at 6 p.m., I'm for it.
Don't worry, we'll save Christmas for you, Dylan.
No, fuck no. Anyway, moving on to... I thought you said this was going to be a happy story.
It is I said it was going to be a bright story.
It's a bright story.
Yes.
Yeah. Not a miserable...
I mean, the happy part is there's a bunch of cosplay Santas just roaming around Tokyo right now. Happen to be there. Great time to be alive.
Mm-hmm.
You could... what if you could, conceal, a face mask beneath the beard if you're one of those Santas? That'd be the way to do it.
With very big fake lips, yes.
Yes, yeah.
Yes. The worst Santa ever.
Horror Santa. Okay. Thanks everyone for listening. Nice ramble about one of my favorite comedies. All right, everyone. Goodbye for now.
Ciao.
Cheers.